You don't have to go far these days if you live in African American communities throughout the nation to read about, hear about someone that has been killed and the senseless killing that's going on in our streets. That becomes the purpose of our upcoming meeting that's going to be titled Public Health, Public Safety, and Economic Development. Connecting the dots. Tonight, we're going to talk about part one of that discussion that's for the upcoming meeting. And this is going to focus on public health. We titled this Streetology, an understanding of how we got here. When you look at inner cities throughout the nation, how did they get there? We start first with why do they kill? And in that respect, we're going to be talking about intergenerational trauma and some experts that's going to come to the table to explain that. And more importantly, to talk about how that impacts our DNA as well as our psyche. Meaning that it plays a part in our health issues as a people when it comes to diabetes, cancer, our blood pressure, and all those other negatives when it comes to the African American community. So we're going to talk about the physical aspect of intergenerational trauma, and the other aspect of intergenerational trauma, which we titled Black Rage. That being said, the next part of that discussion is going to talk about create the mindset. Why do people in the streets think what they think, and what are the influences that has led to that thinking? We call it the self-fulfilling prophecy. If you create the conditions, you control the narrative. We start by exploring economic slavery. And it's not hard to see that when you think about the fact that African Americans, as a group, this generation will leave no wealth for the first time for the next generation. Add that to the fact that at our current direction, by 2047, African Americans will be considered a second-class economic group of people. We're going to talk about how that comes into play. Then we're going to talk about the welfare system and the impact that had on the breakup of the family and the current dependency mentality that we have in some as a whole. Then we're going to talk about drugs and guns and how by flooding the Black community with guns and drugs, how that led to the creation of the hood. Then we're going to talk about probably one of the most important topics to understanding why they kill and why they act like they act. When we begin to talk about the control of the culture, specifically hip hop. How when hip hop started, it started as a positive, and how it was kidnapped and created and turned into a gangster type of culture. We're going to explore why they think what they think and how the culture played a part in that when it comes to hip hop and the addiction of the streets. Control the culture is probably one of the most important aspects of this discussion. Because if you want to understand why they act like they act, then you have to understand the hip hop culture. Again, this is going to be a discussion about how do we change the narrative. The other part of the meeting is going to talk about public safety. What are the strategies being used to reduce violence in the most violent prone community throughout the nation? What strategies are working? And then we're going to go to economic development. What is the solution? We should call it socioeconomic development. What is the solution from a social perspective and from an economic perspective? So you'll be hearing more about this upcoming meeting. The next time I do a video is going to talk about the public safety aspect of the meeting. And then the last meeting is going to talk about the economic aspect of the meeting. And then the meeting itself, that date will be given from these overviews. And then talk about the in-depth findings that we found.